It's the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
I talked about what the Celtics can do differently. I touched on a little bit of what the Nets can do differently. I'm not sure exactly what major adjustments they're going to make. This is a case, and I talked about this with Adam Arbrecht of Locked On Nets when we did our crossover the other day last week. And I said, what are Brooklyn's adjustments going to be? How about some more James Harden? How about some more Kevin Durant? A little more Kyrie Irving? Like, keep doing what you're doing. I think if I'm the Nets, I come out of that and I say, you won that game by 9, and it was only because Kemba hit a couple of late threes. Kemba was way off. You played good defense. You were cold as hell in the first half, and you still had a lead that got up to 15 quick. You took Boston's best shot in the first half. Boston defended really well, generally speaking, and you still turned it on real quick, and you got up to 15. So if I'm looking at it from the Brooklyn perspective, and I'm sure if you listen to the Locked On Nets podcast and you read some of the things that are going on, written by some of the Brooklyn, the Brooklyn side of the reporting world, I'm willing to bet the general consensus is, you know what? Keep doing what you're doing, and you'll be fine. And that's probably true. If we're being completely honest, like, that's probably true. However, you never know. Boston, just like they can say, hey, we were cold in the first half. Well, Boston can say, hey, we got nothing practically from Kemba and nothing from Evan Fournier. Like, those guys, we're counting on those guys. Like, they probably won't be this bad the whole series. You hope they're not. So Boston can still say some things too. Boston will make adjustments. They've been a pretty good offensive team all year long. They have had that ability to go out there and put up a lot of points. So Brooklyn can stand pat and say, let's see what they do. But they can also make some adjustments. I think defensively, they're still going to say, let's keep switching. And I think they switch out of necessity. They're not going to try anything super, super complicated defensively. This team is still new playing together, right? They are still trying to figure things out. That lineup that they put out to start the first game had never played a minute of NBA basketball together. So they can't go in and put in super complicated defensive concepts. This is going to be simple because they're just not a defensive team anyway. They've got those individual defenders, and the Celtics are going to make those guys move. But they're going to say, hey, look, let's see what the Celtics do. Let's go with our switching, and let's see if our switching can just keep up with that. All right? Let's be aware that they're going to try and slip screens. Let's be aware that they're going to do X, Y, and Z. Let's be aware of certain things here and just make sure that our switches are tight. Make sure that there's some help behind that. Make sure that if you're on the weak side, you've got a step, you've got a foot in the paint. And so you can close out. You're not trying to get the steal necessarily. You're just trying to close out, but be there in the paint to give that help, to deter the slip. So your focus, I think, from Steve Nash's perspective is keep doing what we're doing, tighten it up a little bit, make sure the help is there. The counter to that is if Boston is getting them out of sorts, if the things that I've talked about today with Fournier and yesterday with the slips and the rescreens and all of that, if that stuff is actually having the effect that it's supposed to have from Boston's perspective, then I can see Brooklyn saying, you know what, zone it up, and we're going to go zone, and let's see how they do against the zone. Boston is kind of notorious for not playing well against the zone. So let's throw some of that stuff out there. Again, they haven't done this a lot, but look, playing a zone is, you should be able to figure out how to play a zone. If you've ever played basketball, you know the basic concept of a zone. Now, NBA zones are different. They're more complicated, but you can get the basics down of a 2-3 zone, a matchup zone, 3-2 zone. You can come up with different variations. You at least get the basics there. So, and they've run zone before. So I would expect that If Brooklyn's going to change anything, it'll be more zone defense. And if Steve Nash wants to get saucy, then he can start out in a zone and say, ha, gotcha, threw you off. You were expecting switches. Here's a zone. That could be enough in the first quarter to have Boston come out and be like, oh, whoa, we were expecting switches and kind of fall out of sorts. Now, the thing I said before is they could also start Jeff Green and go really small. Boston targeted Blake Griffin. He was not good in that game. Maybe they say, you know what? Start Jeff Green from the beginning. Let's go small. We're going to switch everything and then force you to adjust. And how does Brad Stevens adjust to that? Again, I said it before. If they start Robert Williams, that's fine because Jeff Green guarding Robert Williams, I'll take that. Because whoever switches onto Robert Williams, he's just going to dive to the basket. That could be a lob. Or it could be fouls. And you can get Brooklyn into early foul trouble. That would be a huge help. If you can find a way to draw those early fouls and get Brooklyn into the bonus, now you have the opportunity to score points and really pile up the points. Maybe you can get one of their key guys out for a little while. Maybe throw them off a rhythm. A Harden, a Durant, one of those guys. If you can get 2 fouls on those guys, that would be a huge plus. So force them to defend. And if they want to throw Jeff Green out there and you got Robert Williams out there, that's how I would, even if they put Jeff Green in, it's Robert Williams with Jeff Green to me. Whatever they're going to do. Now, on the other side, you got to be aware, and another reason why I want Robert Williams in there when Jeff Green is out there is because you're going to need somebody who's able to recover quickly. And even though Jeff Green's going to space the floor, he's seen Robert Williams block 3-point shots. And when Robert Williams is on the floor, whoever is driving, unless it's like Durant probably, but generally whoever is driving, and Robert Williams is on the floor, it's like swimming when you know that there's a shark in the water. You're like, where is it? Get me out of here. I don't want to be in here. So that, I think, has that, can counter the Jeff Green effect a little bit. So if they do go with Jeff Green, I'm going with Robert Williams. I'm doing it as much as I can. I'm not putting Tristan Thompson up there against Jeff Green. I'll put Tristan Thompson in against Blake or any other of their big guys. And then if Claxton's in there and he's trying to protect the rim, maybe they go small. Maybe the Celtics put in try Grant Williams. Maybe you just roll the dice on 5 minutes of Grant Williams and you see what kind of Grant Williams that you've got. It's dicey. It's a tough proposition because if you've got, and it wouldn't even be 5 minutes. It'd be like 2 or 3, but those 2 or 3 minutes can be disastrous. And that's tough. That's why I hesitate. He's had such a tough time, but I think with him versus Tristan Thompson, spacing the floor, pulling Claxton out, like that at least opens up some lanes and gets somebody, gets Jason Tatum, Fournier, Kemba to the rim a little bit. So we'll see. I don't think the Nets do a ton differently. I think they just roll with it and they have a couple of these counters, like I mentioned, to throw at the Celtics to try to throw them off a little bit. But I just don't think it's that much.